Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at something quite specific, a trend, it seems, within the Jehovah's Witnesses. A number of long-serving elders are, well, reportedly leaving the organization.
Yeah, that's right. And our deep dive today, it's focusing on one main source. It's an article called 11 Reasons Why Jehovah's Witness Elders Are Leaving the Watchtower in Droves. It pulls together, testimonies, research, tries to get at the why.
Exactly. So our mission here is to unpack those reasons, those pressures,
Yeah.
using what this source material tells us. And why should you care? Well, it's a fascinating look at sort of internal conflicts, authority, how community works under pressure, themes you see in lots of different groups, really.
And what the source really brings out is this idea of cognitive dissonance, that real mental strain when your core beliefs start clashing with maybe new information or things you're asked to do. It's rarely just one thing. It's usually a buildup.
Right. And the source often points to doctrine as like a starting point for that clash, especially around failed prophecies. Think back to the whole 1975 Armageddon prediction. The article notes how the leadership later kind of framed those hopes, which they promoted, as individuals maybe running ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of historical, let's say, adjustment, it creates tension. People made big life choices based on those teachings back then. For elders who are actually teaching this stuff, counseling people, that tension is, well, it's amplified.
Makes sense.
And the source has this quote from a former elder basically saying the governing body should just, admit they're doing their best with a man-made organization. Plus, there was that moment with governing body member Jeffrey Jackson under oath.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
He said calling themselves God's only spokesperson would be quite presumptuous. The source suggests these things chip away, at the unique authority elders have to uphold every day.
So you've got that internal doctrinal stuff, and then the source talks about the external pressures, organizational control. The article uses the word authoritarian. It mentions a teaching where a member's mind belongs to the governing body.
Right. And questioning things isn't just like frowned upon. The source says it can even be framed as, well, coming from Satan.
Wow.
Which puts elders in a really tough spot, doesn't it? They have to enforce rules, sometimes with serious consequences for people, even if they privately have doubts. The source suggests this really forces a kind of moral compromise.
And building on that conformity pressure, the source gets into the social cost, shunning. It describes the practice for those who are disfellowshipped or disassociated, basically expelled or formally leaving. They're ostracized and rejected, often by family, friends, their whole community.
And this is where the psychological impact seems just devastating, according to the source. It quotes a former elder, Dr. Rolf Feruli, who calls the organization's public line that shunning is a personal choice. He calls it an outright lie. He describes it as a weapon of psychological control.
That's incredibly strong language.
It is. And the human cost, the article cites a survey. 50% of people affected by shunning reported suicidal thoughts. And it mentions documented suicides after people leave groups like this. It paints a picture of community love that's very conditional.
Conditional on staying active, adhering strictly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and the final major area the source delves into is the handling of child sexual abuse allegations. It flags concerns around the two-witness rule, needing two witnesses for certain serious claims.
Right, which can obviously make reporting incredibly difficult. The source also mentions accusations about, concealing things to protect the organization's image and the lack of mandatory reporting in every single instance. And it doesn't just rely on internal accounts. It brings in external findings, too, like the UK Charity Commission inquiry. They found the Watchtower wasn't as straightforward or transparent as it should have been on child safeguarding. And cases like the Barry Davis lawsuit mentioned, alleging abusers were put back into positions. These create huge ethical conflicts for elders.
Absolutely. Caught between policy and protecting people.
Precisely.
So if we pull it all together, the source seems to be saying these elders are leaving because it all just adds up. You've got the unresolved doctrinal issues, the prophecy failures, the strain of enforcing control while maybe having your own doubts, witnessing the human cost of shunning, that conditional community, and then these really serious ethical crises around child abuse handling.
Yeah, it's presented as an accumulation, not just abstract problems, but deeply personal conflicts, reaching a point where, for these individuals, their role just clashes too hard with their own conscience, their own integrity.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? So what does this deep dive leave you considering? Maybe it's about authority in these kinds of groups, accountability, or the psychological side of strict conformity, Or even just, what does real community support look like? Something to mull over, perhaps.